Design Dungeon. Welcome back to Design Dungeon, and you're watching the second half of the O.K.K.O review. This episode, we are covering the villains of the show. If you haven't seen the previous episode, which covered most of the main cast, go on and see that first. Or not, you really don't need to. In case this is your first video, here's a quick look at how I judge character designs. First is how interesting the character's color palette is. Conveyance is what the design tells us about the character in question. Authenticity is all about how the design is unique or takes old elements and spins them into a distinct way. Lastly, there's the bonus for having variant designs that can reflect on different aspects of the character. Are we up to speed now? Alright, great. Let's actually start the review. Lord Boxman, if the sickly green hair, the stop-me red-eye doesn't sell the villain look, I don't know what will. Nice combination of mainly analogous colors with some neutral and contrasting ones make for a fine palette. A. His conveyance is also spot on. Just look at him! Half of him's robotic! He's even got fangs! The tightly buttoned lab coat not only suggests both his occupation as a mad scientist, but also his position as the head of Boxmore Manufacturing. His short, rotund stature also gives him an unimposing look, showing us that he's not going to be a big threat most of the time. It's very strong conveyance. S rank. The mad scientist archetype is nothing new. Heck, the mad roboticist has two major examples, those being Dr. Eggman and Dr. Wily. Lord Boxman manages to pull from both of those two, and still retain a design that is uniquely his own. Most of it has to do with how Boxman has gone so far as to make himself a cyborg. It plays more into the crazed roboticist than the other two, and feels like a natural progression of this concept. I'll give his authenticity an A+. Unfortunately, Boxman has very few alternate designs. The only one of note is one during a flashback to his youth, so I'll just give him the variant bonus of a C, leaving Boxman's total rank as an A. Daryl is Boxman's basic robot model, and boy does he look the part. His color scheme is primarily red with a green brain container, with some yellow accents on the chest and hands, with some dark gray feet. It's alright, but what would really take the palette further would be to utilize one of the secondary colors more for some additional accents or coloring in the joints. Just a B for color. Daryl has very little to convey. He's kind of your basic bipedal robot. There really isn't much else to him. I'll give that a C+. His authenticity is also nothing to write home about. The only real flourish to this design is the brain canister. So points for having an interesting element for the character, B-. Daryl only has one variant design, but it is a big one. His cowboy outfit, when he takes over the Boxmore facility, basically gives his character a complete 180. He's no longer the lowly grunt. He is the boss, and he's serious about it. Just for that, the variant bonus is an S, salvaging Daryl's score to a B+. Shannon is effectively the elder sister to Daryl, since the robots generally regard each other as being family. Her color scheme is effectively an improved version of Daryl. Her two shades of orange are analogous, with the light green triangle at her chest, all of which is topped off with her red eyes. It's an upgrade if you ask me, so a B+ is fitting. Shannon is the only outright female of the robots as far as conveyance goes. Her wide hips and hair-like headpiece give her a feminine figure. Without speaking a word, you can tell that she's Boxman's daughter. Also a B+. While the concept of a female robot is definitely not new, in fact the headpiece does somewhat resemble the robot from Metropolis. However, this design is quite unique. Shannon can transform her limbs and is quite versatile. Though what makes Shannon truly unique is her variant forms. So for now, you'll have to take my word at an A- for authenticity. As for her variants, well, here's the first one. It's quite imposing to say the least. The second one is practically Lovecraftian in design. Really speechless, well, except for the obvious, "This isn't even my final form" joke. Yeah, S rank for the variant bonus, leaving Shannon at an A. For Raymond, dude's practically monochrome, consisting of at least 5 different shades of green, with the only thing to counterbalance it being his red eyes. Despite that, the arrangement of each color makes sense and helps define his body parts. Probably the most sophisticated color scheme of the Boxmoor family thus far. A-. Raymond is clearly an older brother figure. Judging by his build and body language, he's quite snooty at that. Maybe even a tad vain. We get a lot out of this design. A- for the conveyance. Ray is fairly unusual. You don't see too many robots with hair, never mind pompadours. Androids notwithstanding. It's alright. Solid B. Raymond doesn't have too much in the way of meaningful variant designs, but he does have a few sports-related outfits, so I'll just give the variant bonus a C, making Raymond a B+. Next is Ernesto. Apparently he's the eldest brother. Ernesto's scheme, much like Raymond, is practically monochrome, consisting of 3 shades of purple, 2 shades of black, and it's not the most exciting palette out there. It is at least arranged well, so I'll just give it a B+. His conveyance is somewhat lacking. All his design tells us is that he's a dapper older brother to his siblings, while the use of the color purple does suggest regality, though from what I've seen he's not regarded as a prince or anything. I think you could have changed him from purple to blue and you'd get a better effect. Blue would solidify him as the voice of reason, or a more authoritative figure. Purple, not so much. Even though the palette alone is solid, it doesn't do much for him as a character. His conveyance is a C+. As for authenticity, does anybody just see an Omnidroid in a suit with a hat? Still, it's somewhat interesting to look at, so I'll just give it a B-. Ernesto has no real variant design, so I'll just skip to the verdict. Ernesto gets a B. Last of the Boxmoor family is Michaela. For a color scheme, all I can say is yellow! It's yellow! Okay, really, her color palette is kind of lacking. Excluding the white in it, there are only 3 colors. It's arranged well, but those colors are particularly garish. Just a C. In spite of the horrid color palette, her conveyance is mostly solid. She's the sole quadruped model of Boxmoor. As such, she is the most animalistic of them. If you were to strip away the colors and rework them, you could have a very imposing robot. B+. As said before, Michaela is the only quadruped among the robots, so her silhouette is vastly different from the others. Aside from that, there's not much else to her, so authenticity is also a B+. For her variant bonus, she has a costume that expresses how she wants to be a bit more human. It's not much, but we take those. It's a B, and her total is also a B. Finally out of Boxmoor, we are done with Boxmoor. Next we have Professor Venomous. Color-wise, he's an odd mix of desaturated blues, purples, and green, all of which are unified by his white lab coat. It's not the most striking palette, but it's alright. B-. Now his conveyance is quite strong. The one thing those colors do right is tell us that he's quite villainous. His skin is straight up purple. There's no way that's natural. It's like he's a foil to Boxman too, where one has experimented on themselves through different means. One is robotics, the other through genetic engineering. That's what I get from this guy. He's tall, well-built, has neat slick-backed hair, is clearly the opposite of the inept Lord Boxman. He's an A there. While he does serve as a foil to Boxman, this also means that he looks a lot more average. Beyond his purple skin is simply a scientist that exploits his knowledge. His design is opposite of the mad scientist, again omitting the purple. in truth, it's quite unique because it is in contrast to the more conventional Boxman that defines him visually as a character. I think they were planning this little contrast between the two from the very beginning. His authenticity is an A-. Venomous doesn't really have too many variants that actually reveal anything about him. Still, costume changes are good for any significant character, so he'll get a C for the bonus. All things considered, Professor Venomous is a B+. Joker does the green and purple far better. Next is Venomous's minion, or rather two-grown child, Fink. Her color palette is simple but well constructed. Most of it consists of toothpaste green hair, lighter green fur, some neutral grays for clothing and boots, which would be boring on its own except for her reddish pink gloves. These counterbalance all the green and make her design far more interesting to look at. A-. For Conveyance, there's a Secret of Nim joke to be made, but I am drawing a blank on it. Total blank. Aside from that, her body language expresses her bratty nature. For Conveyance, I will give her an A. No questions there. Despite most likely made around a pun, I think Fink is a very authentic character. An incredibly authentic character with an underutilized concept. She stands out from the cast and is a very memorable character visually. A-. Fink has one variant design that probably has spawned several theories. Her turbo form resembles TKO with both her upturned hair and purple spiked braces. What this means in regard to Venomous's connection to TKO has yet to be seen, but I must say it's a very intriguing addition. A for the bonus. Given the string of high marks, it comes as no surprise that Fink's total is an A. Finally is the one known as Shadowy Figure. You may think that Shadowy Figure's color is nothing but a monochromatic set of grays, but it's not that simple. First and foremost, the vast majority of his clothing is actually very desaturated blues of varying values, with the exception of his skin, which seems to be a faded violet. These colors are more suited to blending into shadows in natural environments like caves and forests. Certainly more interesting than the first impression. B+. As for his conveyance and authenticity, well...
Darkness.
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 Darkness!
Nothing.
Keyblade.
A perfect example of relying on established visual cues to convey an idea. The only flair to the outfit being the scarf. I think more could have been done to separate him from the legion of mysterious hooded figures that are out there. Conveyance is an A-, but the authenticity is a C+, giving Shadowy Figure a total of a B.
Bonus round.
Since there were so many characters in OKKO, we're going to have a lightning round to get some of these stragglers that I missed. At least the ones that were notable in my research viewings. Dendy, B-, literally Peridot. Jethro, C-. The mere fact that I forgot to mention him during the Boxmore section speaks to how forgettable he is. Enid's mom, B+. Kakyoin posts for days. Enid's dad, A-.
Oh no, he's hot!
Cosma, A-, low tier scaly bait. A real magic skeleton, B. Eins Ulgon. Brandon, C-. I'm only including him because he works with Magic Skeleton. Boxman Jr., D+. Why Nintendo hasn't filed suit is beyond me. Billiam, C+.
You see, Mr. Powers, I love gold.
Succulentus, B. I'd make a corn joke, but I don't follow new metal. Crinkly Winkly, B-. Sonic's eventual fate. Shy Ninja, B. Obligatory Boruto's dad reference. Red Action, A-. Netflix's She-Ra should learn a thing or two about designing interesting characters from the show. I mean, from what I saw, Red Action was just a minor reoccurring character from the sample that I saw. Potato, B+. the adorable inverse furry. Also carrot clothes. Well, that'll do it for OKKO. Overall, I'd say it's actually a pretty good show. It's mostly written well, aside from a few episodes, and well, the art style is actually pretty good, despite it being simplistic. It reminds me of something a kid would draw. What with how the hands sometimes resolve themselves into simple circles, and how the entire line work is just rough looking. Well, I'll be seeing you guys next time. And the next episode, oh boy, it's gonna be something, alright. It's going to be something.